Hi, everybody. Stefan Schuster here with the Journey Running Podcast. Welcome to episode 5 of the show. Today we've got a really special presentation as we're going to have Dave Braunlich on. He's going to be the second interview that we've had on the show, and one of my good friends out here in Colorado. We've done a lot of trail running over the last year. Dave had to suffer for the last 2 hours as we tried to, for the first time, because this is my first in-person interview. We were trying to get these microphones set up, and it has been quite the hassle.
Yeah, it was basically an ultra in and of itself, getting the audio working for this.
Yes, it has been, but thank you for being patient, Dave, and thank you for being here as well, taking the time to bike to Denver from Boulder.
Well, I didn't have to do that.
You did not have to do that, but one thing that's good that we did get out of the audio not working for a little bit was Dave is now 2 beers deep, so we've got a little bit more honesty coming our way with these answers. But yeah, thanks for being on the show, Dave. For people who don't know Dave, he is a 6-time 100-mile endurance run finisher. He is an Appalachian Trail thru-hiker. His trail name is 70 because he has done the trail in 70 days.
That's not exactly true, but...
Well,
okay,
you did 31 miles a day. Yeah, I'll let you finish that story for everybody in a moment. But has hiked the Appalachian Trail. You've done the Tahoe Rim Trail twice. You've done the Colorado Trail twice, including an edited version I'll let you talk about here. You've also done the Arizona Trail. You're quite accomplished, man. You're a Boston qualifier. But I want to let you introduce yourself, and really excited to hear about some of your stories.
Yeah, so I mean, you just covered a lot of the major things there. Yeah, just real generally, I'm a ultramarathon runner and endurance athlete. I live in Boulder, Colorado, and I teach and coach cross country and track at a nearby school. So,
yeah. What's a little bit more of like your background from? You grew up in New Jersey, like myself. You moved out to Colorado. Where'd you go to college? Like, how did you get into running? Like, what's your whole backstory there?
Yeah, I went to Gettysburg College for undergrad, and I did not get into running until after college. I did play sports in high school, football and golf, which kind of always surprises people when I tell them that, especially people who've known me since I've been an ultramarathon runner. But yeah, after college, I definitely had some weight to lose and needed to start just being a little bit more healthy. And yeah, I don't know how much you want me to go into on this topic, but yeah, I started barely being able to run a mile, like 22 years old, probably 70, 80 pounds overweight. Remember my parents, they lived on this small lake in New Jersey, and to run around the lake was like exactly a mile, and I could barely run that mile without stopping when I first started. And the pain I remember from just those first few times running around the lake was probably on par with some of the most pain I felt running marathons and ultra marathons in the last about 6 years. So I definitely got into it a little bit later than some people.
Yeah, I mean, I got to meet your sister about a month ago, and it was funny. She said that you were always good at everything that you ever did.
That's not true.
but she did say that running was like the first thing that you seemed to dedicate yourself to fully, I guess, compared to maybe things like football or golf in the past. Is that what you think what helped you get from like where you were to be able to, because you started out with marathons, not necessarily ultras, but is that what you think really got you from the point of like having trouble with those first miles to getting to that BQ point? Or even just
so I didn't. Marathon? So when I first started running, like those miles that were super painful around the lake, I had never even heard. I guess I've heard of the Boston Marathon, but I didn't really know what a BQ was. I didn't start out to BQ. That was not my goal. My goal was to just lose weight and be healthier. And I really didn't take running all that seriously until I was probably 25. Mm-hmm. And I eventually progressed to the point where I could run 4 miles fairly comfortably. And I just did like the same 4-mile loop for a few years. And I guess that gave me a pretty good base. And I lost the weight. I got back down to a healthy weight, which is obviously good and was my main goal. But around, I guess early 2016, I signed up for my first half marathon, and then followed a training plan and started taking it a bit more seriously after that.
Yeah. So you started taking it more seriously. What kind of training plan did you follow?
Oh, I think I found one of those like Hal Higdon ones
Nice.
online, which are free, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I don't know. I feel like everyone has a similar story where they follow one of those at some point. And it gets you running, it gets you doing some speed work, and if you follow any training plan, you'll, especially having not done a race before, you'll really gain a lot of fitness pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And I ran that first half marathon, and I didn't really know what I was doing at all, and kind of suffered a bit the last few miles, but ran like a 1:41, which I found out after was like actually pretty good for a first half marathon. And then I signed up for a full marathon later that fall with the goal of running sub 3 and qualifying for Boston. So I did. And then I think for that one, I found I bought one of those like Sage Canaday training plans, and I didn't end up qualifying at that first marathon, but I ran it in I think like 3:13.
Oh, wow.
But I really like suffered the last 10K as you do in a first marathon.
That is a fast first marathon.
Yeah.
So what marathon did you do that in? What was your first full marathon?
That was the main marathon.
The main marathon. And you were living in...
I was living in Portland. I lived in Portland, Maine for a year from like 2016 to 2017.
Okay. So was it mainly trail running and ultra running that you moved out to Colorado for?
Yeah, I guess I started getting into it when I the last few months I lived on the East Coast, but and then I really started getting into the trails, and I looked for a job out in Colorado on the Front Range, and I've been really focused on the trails ever since.
So one question I have for you, and I'm sure that all of our friends who know you as well are going to be interested in the answer to this. He's cracking open another beer for it. But no, seriously. So when you started running and training for those Boston qualifiers and like your marathons, you were actually following training plans, and that's not something you seem to do these days. These days, you are not afraid to throw down big miles week after week after week, and you kind of just seem to do whatever you want whenever you want. Like, how has your philosophy on training changed over time, and like why? What's influenced it?
Yeah, so exactly. When I eventually did BQ in 2017, and I followed one of those Jack Daniels training plans, and I followed it really to a T. And the workouts, if you're familiar with Jack Daniels at all, the workouts are brutal. Like things like 6x2 mile repeats was like one of the worst ones, and it was like super structured. And I don't know, people say you either get really fit or really injured. Fortunately, I think I fell into the former on that one. But I got kind of burnt out on marathon training, and then I tried like the years after, like 17, I guess fall 17 and 18, to try to go for a New York qualifier, and I didn't get it. And I don't know. I felt like I'd kind of reached my potential in the marathon, and that the trails are way more fun. And I was like, well, and part of my reason for following like a marathon plan so structured like that was I was afraid that, if I didn't have this training plan to follow, that I would just like stop running.
Gotcha.
And like move on to another fad or whatever. But I don't know, I eventually got to the point, it's like, well, I know I'm not going to stop running, and I'm just going to do what I enjoy more. And if I get a little bit slower, I don't really care. So I guess that answers your question.
Yeah, it's interesting. At first, it seemed like you had the training plan because it was more fear-based. Like, I want to make sure I stick with this. It's almost like people who, like, they need to pay for a fitness trainer or a gym, not because not necessarily because the money matters, but because knowing that they're paying for something is what's motivating them. But then the reason that were running was more so went from fitness to just like, I love this.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's cool. What ended up being your first ultra? When did you make that switch?
Yeah, so it was actually the first ultra I did was building up to the Sugarloaf Marathon, which was the marathon I was training for in the spring of 17. And when I was doing halves, I was like, oh, if I run 16 miles, that'll give me more confidence going into the half marathon because it's less about the distance and now more about speed. So the Sugarloaf Marathon was in May, and then I found this trail 50K. It's called, I think, the Tark 50K in Massachusetts. And I was like, well, if I can run the 50K, and then I know like the marathon, it's more going to be more about speed than the distance. So that was in like April of 17. I ran that first 50K. And it went pretty well. Of course, this was like I think 5-10K loops, and it was pretty flat, but it was all on trails, and it was a rainy spring New England day. It was a fun time.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And wait, so what year was it again when you moved
17.
out?
Colorado was July of 17.
Okay, so you ran your first ultra and then almost like immediately moved out
I
here.
ran the I don't think they do it anymore, the North Face 50 mile in Massachusetts. That was like my first one that had like climbing and more technical trails, and I loved it. I thought it was super fun, that one.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to those North Face events. I remember Dean Karnassus used to like be the face of them, really.
Yeah, I went. They had like a pep rally or something before that Massachusetts one, and they brought him out there, and he was
amazing.
He was talking to the runners. So yes, so I got to meet him a little bit.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
that's cool. I got to meet him.
I think I just said hi, but yeah.
I met him in 2015 at the Chicago Marathon. I still had a smartphone at the time, just a flip phone. Yeah. And I have this really shitty picture of him and I when I was like what was it?
Yeah.
Must have been sophomore, junior in college, something like that. Either way, I have this terrible picture, but it was cool to get to meet him. He did a lot of events like that.
Yeah, I read his book when I was first getting into running. So it was like cool to see him person after reading that book.
How early on, at what point did you read his book?
I think sometime in 2016. I read like his book, Scott Jurek, Born to Run.
Yeah.
So yeah, 2016 I really started getting into it more.
That's awesome. I read Ultramarathon Man. I was a freshman in high school, so it would have been 2009. Yeah, that was the first time I ever heard of what like an ultramarathon was, and that's really what got me into the sport in particular. But yeah, so it's been cool. Like, here's some of your backstory, and then so you moved to Colorado. So you moved here, and then you're teaching it's math, and you're also a coach.
Yeah.
You want to speak on that a little bit? Like, how do you like coaching? Has it taught you more about running, or like more about yourself?
Yeah. So coaching. Mainly the coaching I've done has been like 7th and 8th grade. So at that level, we're more trying to just get them exposed to the sport and get them out there, get them running. So a lot of them, it's an accomplishment if they can just run for 2 miles straight. Some of them are pretty good, but and that's really, we're just trying to expose them to the sport and make it fun more than anything else. So yeah, it's just a fun time, and I like to share my passion with our kids. So
do your kids think you're crazy, or like what do the parents say to you?
Definitely get a lot of, I don't even like to drive that far. Someone at our
thinking of ultra running memes.
Yeah, right. It's now someone at our last meet from I think Thursday was like, I heard you did a 100-mile run the other day. I'm like, yeah, and you know, they ask you all like the basic questions like, do you stop? Do you sleep? Is it? Like all that stuff. And then, of course, that comment about not wanting to drive 100 miles. So
yeah,
yeah, you definitely get a lot of that.
That's cool. What's like the best way for you to motivate your kids? Like, what are they motivated by?
As far as running goes, yeah, that's a $1 million question right there. It's like, we try to tell them that you need to if you just walk the runs we do and talk to your friends, it's the only thing you're going to get better at. If you want to improve with running, you actually have to run. And I think some of them have trouble with delayed gratification. So just, keep trying to build that. And it's hey, we have cross country season for 2.5 months. If you put in the work, you're going to get better. And yeah, it can be a struggle sometimes. But just working with them on, understanding how running works really.
Yeah, they say delayed gratification is one of the big indicators of kids, how smart they are when they're young, especially I don't want to say how smart they are because you can teach. I do think you can teach that, but at the same time, whether it's innate or not is another subject. It's
exactly,
do you need to teach this to people? Because some people need to learn that. And patience is a really important part of running, just like it is with other facets of life.
Yeah. And at the middle school level, a lot of kids can just get by on talent alone. And some kids will be in for a rude awakening when they get for high school. It's oh, this kid who's been working really hard is now faster than me.
Yeah.
All of a sudden.
Dude, I'll never forget. I was in 7th grade and I beat this kid in a race and he threw a temper tantrum because he was in 8th grade. I think he was pissed he lost to a 7th grader. And he lost to me once and then he lost to me twice. And after the second time, he quit running. And he started playing hockey.
Yeah, that's not the reaction you should have.
I know, that's not the reaction you should have. But I don't know. I'll never forget that. I was why? I thought you were here because you enjoyed the sport, not because I don't know. You just want to beat other people. Competition's good. It's a great tool, I think. And the key word there is tool. It's a great tool to better yourself when you have other people to push you harder.
Right.
But it's not winning isn't really the primary focus, I think. Is a good way to look at it. But speaking of patience, you are a very patient man.
I've been accused of being impatient before, so I don't know about that.
I would say, all right, so as your friend, you're really patient as a thru-hiker. I mean, this guy can walk for thousands of miles straight, right? But
suppose.
I know you're also not a fan of running with other people all the time because you're more of a I'd say definitely more of an
there's
introvert,
pros
but
and
also
cons,
more
for sure.
You want to do your own thing and be on your own schedule, which don't get me wrong, I can relate to that too. I think you're a pretty patient person. I mean, the ability to
maybe as I've gotten older, I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird. I can be patient when I'm running a race, but I hate traffic. There's different facets of it, I was going to ask you a little bit about thru-hiking because if you moved out to Colorado in 2017, that's really when your ultras started. Your first thru-hike was the Colorado Trail, and I thought you did your first version, the first time you did that was in 2018, right?
Correct.
So you got into thru-hiking really quickly after moving here too.
Yeah, so kind of the genesis of that, when I first moved here, I was looking for places to go run, and I heard about Waterton Canyon and went down there, and then I heard about the Colorado Trail and did more research into that, and it was you can really only hike this trail in the summer.
Let's hold up for a second.
Okay.
For those who don't know, what is the Colorado Trail? How far is it? Stuff like that.
Oh, I think everyone knows. It's 500 miles, Denver to Durango. Well, it's not really Denver. It's outside of Denver, but yeah.
Southwest Denver.
Yeah, more or less.
Sorry, I'll let you continue with what you were saying. I just wanted, there's probably people listening who don't know exactly what it is.
Yeah, if you're listening to this and you don't know what the Colorado Trail is, DM me because I want to talk to you.
I didn't know what it was before moving here. So it runs from Denver.
I didn't know what it was when I first moved here either, but I don't know. Okay, anyway.
Yeah, it goes from Denver to Southwest Colorado and Durango for those listening who are not aware. But I'll let you continue your story now.
Yeah, so I did a run. I think I ran up past the dam. If you've ever been to Waterton Canyon, then it becomes single track, and I ran up there for a few miles. And I remember I got home and I did more research on the Colorado Trail. And I found you can only really hike it during the summer. And having some free time in the summer, I was like, oh, this sounds like a really cool thing to do. So, started, planning to thru hike it the next summer.
Yeah. What's that process like? Because I did my first through hike this year with you, which was the Tahoe Rim Trail, but I had you to lean on for all my questions. And you didn't have an as knowledgeable version of yourself to lean on. So, like, how did you just have to do it by trial and error, or what was that process like?
Yeah, so if you can just back up how I first got into backpacking generally, when I was living in Maine, I had a friend from college who was working in Maine too for the summer, and then like right around this time, like Columbus Day weekend, we went up to the Appalachian Trail, and if anyone is familiar with the Grafton Notch Loop Trail in Maine, we didn't even do the full loop. We did like 25 miles, which is like half of the loop in 3 days and 2 nights, and all with borrowed gear that he had from this camp that he was working in. And I really had no idea what I was doing, except for having a good amount of fitness, which went a long way. But I didn't really, like, I had none of my own gear and no skills or knowledge. I was just doing what I was told to do. And I don't know, I found that it was like that I could hike faster than my friends. I was like, well, I could have done the 40-mile loop on my own. And I was like, well, I think I can definitely do this on my own. And it's like, yeah, well, you have to buy all the gear, and that could be kind of expensive. So I don't know. I just kind of went on YouTube and like did a lot of, quote unquote, my own research and got a bunch of stuff. And I actually did a short hike on the Appalachian Trail before coming out to Colorado. It's not that short. I did like all of New Hampshire.
Oh, wow.
But it was all with like crappy gear. And in New Hampshire, some of the camp spots, there's like tent platforms, and I had a non-freestanding tent, and those platforms are really only meant for freestanding tents. So I tried to set up my tent on one of the platforms, and it was like maybe the second time I'd ever set it up, so I didn't even really know how to set it up to begin with. And I did not set up right, and it rained that night, and I got really wet, and it was just miserable.
Oh man, that sounds like me the first time I tried setting up my tent with you.
I feel like everyone should have kind of a rite of passage story like that, where they just do something really stupid because they don't know what they're doing.
I got to cheat because I had you. But yeah, so like, what are you eating when you're out there? I mean, I know the answer to this, but like, people listening might be thinking, well, through hiking, backpacking, like, what do you eat? Like, how do you, like, what's the like the nitty gritty kind of details out there? Like,
yeah, I mean, it's definitely gotten more refined over the years. Lots of peanut butter, bars. Yeah, I've kind of gone through phases with oatmeal. I dehydrate a lot of my own meals, which is a lot of work ahead of time, but it, definitely pays off when you're out there. Yeah, ramen, right? Cold soak ramen noodles. The classic.
So you actually taught me. I didn't know what dehydrating was before like I met you. So it's basically when you just cook a meal and you have a machine that sucks all the water out of it, and then you just throw it in like something like a Talenti jar with water on the trail to rehydrate it. After about an hour or two, it becomes edible again. So you could have something like chili on the trail that's homemade, right. That you made like a month or 2 or 3 months earlier. And that was really cool to learn from you. But I also know, so you did the CT, and then you did the Appalachian Trail a year later, and you did it. I don't know if your diet was fully vegan, but like, where in this process did you become a vegan?
So when I went to Maine in Portland, or in 2016, I was in a living situation with these 2 roommates, and they were vegan, or they were vegetarian. So I was like, oh, I'll just try being vegetarian. And I had read Eat Run like a few months before, and I was like, I'll just try it and see how it goes. And I liked it, and I felt like my recovery with all the training I was doing was really good, and that I was at a really lean weight, and that, I'd never been in better shape. And I was like, well, I'll keep doing this because I like it. So yeah,
I think it's crazy that you like not only did the AT, but you did it as quickly as you did, and you did it on, I don't know if your diet was
I didn't do
vegan.
It completely on a vegan diet.
Yeah,
but probably, definitely vegetarian though.
Yeah. What was your experience on the AT? That was like, I don't know. I tell everybody I know about you because that's just the craziest feat of any friend I've ever had. Like hiking that far, like 2,200 miles, 2,100 miles in like the amount of time you did it in is just incredible.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, well, when I was on the Colorado Trail, I was thinking about it, and it's like, well, I made a plan to hike the Colorado Trail, I think in like 25 days. And it's like, oh, if I could do like a marathon a day, that'd be pretty good. And I found myself, most days doing more than 30, and I'd even have that light of a pack on that trail. And I was thinking about, because I'd been on the AT the summer before. I actually was on the AT for a few days in like New Jersey before I did the Colorado Trail. So I was a little bit familiar with the AT, and I was thinking, well, it's only 2,200 miles, and 2,200 divided by 70 is 31.3. So it's like I could do it in like a whole summer break. And yeah, eventually just decided to go for it, right? YOLO.
Yeah, but you had some hiccups at the end, didn't you?
Yeah, almost quite literally.
Or I should say, even before we go to the end of it, you had like plantar fasciitis. I think you said you were dealing with for a lot of it.
Yeah, the first, I think, in the Shenandoah, I started, which is like mile 900-ish. I started getting plantar fasciitis and was sucking down the ibuprofen like almost the rest of the way, and was just dealing with that. So yeah, but you can, unless it gets really bad, that's something that you can manage for sure.
Yeah. What's a day out on the AT with Dave like? Or I should call you 70.
Yeah, so that hike, I got up at like 4 a.m. every day and tried to be hiking by 4:30 every day just to get the miles in. And yeah, I mean, we're just going all day and hiking uphill hard, and I don't know, or just walking all day. I don't know what you want me to say.
I don't know. I was just wondering, like, because I know what it's like hiking with you. You're intense at everything you do.
Yeah.
You're the kind of guy that you hike from sunrise to sunset.
Yep. That's the only way to do it.
I'm like you. Like, I get a lot of value out of movement.
Right.
I don't know why. Like this year, I hiked the CTI. Obviously, I didn't finish, but I had a lot of trouble on that trail dealing with the storms because it'd be 2:00, and I was thinking to myself, I'm here because I love moving, and I couldn't because a lot of that trail is obviously above tree line, and that was really frustrating. But you're the kind of guy that you seem to love that as well. And like, it doesn't surprise me that you woke up that early. You started that early. You're going hard all day. You're doing the uphills.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was definitely hard to get up at 4 a.m, especially after like walking 35 miles. And the AT is not like some of these trails out west that are graded for horses or smooth, like buffed out paths, like a lot of the Tahoe Rim Trail is. Like, it's straight up and down, like pretty much every mountain it can find from Georgia to Maine.
Yeah, I hear switchbacks don't exist on the East Coast.
More, you'll find some in the South, but fewer and fewer as you go north.
Yeah. So what's it like? I mean, I'm thinking to myself, you wake up at 4 a.m., you're like, I got plantar fasciitis, 900 miles in. And I got a time cutoff because I'm a teacher and I got to get back to school. I'm sure. Was that stressful?
I didn't really think about it like that. It was just like, I just got to get the miles in for today and just focusing on that day, what I had to do. So it's like I can hike right now. So, and if it starts to hurt, I'll take some ibuprofen and I'll keep going as long as I can keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What happened towards the end?
Yeah, so at the end, so I was going northbound. The last town that you get into before the 100-mile wilderness in Maine is this small town called Monson. And I was on pace. I'd fallen like a day behind pace, but I had a plan to go through the 100-mile wilderness and finish on day 71. And get into Monson on day 68. I was going to go through like all night on the last night. I get my mail drop. I get a bite to eat in town. I hitch back to the trail. I do another 15 miles from the road. And kind of at the end of the day, I just started feeling really nauseous and sick. And next thing I knew, I was like throwing up on the side of the trail. And I was like, oh, I'll try to set up my tent a few miles early and see if I can sleep it off. But it just continued all night long, the sickness. And the next morning, I slept until like 8, which was like by far the longest I had slept in. And I really couldn't, I don't know, I just lost all my strength and all my appetite. It took me like 2 hours to go 3 miles, and I found a spot with some cell service, and I called the hostel Shaw's in Monson. And there was fortunately a place where I could actually get off trail and walk like a mile down this other side trail and get picked up. And I didn't really have time to get better and rest for a few days and get back on trail.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I made it 69 days, and I had on Gut Hook, I had like 99 miles to go from where I got off, which was it was, I don't know, just such a difficult, like whirlwind of emotions getting that far and having to get off trail there.
Yeah. How did you end up finishing that last 99?
Yeah, so at school we had a break in October, so I just went back out in October and flew to Portland, Maine, got a bus up somewhere else in Maine and a ride up to Monson, and did the 100-mile wilderness and Katahdin in October, which was sort of a blessing in disguise because the 100-mile wilderness in October is an amazing place to be. The colors are absolutely unreal.
So how do you, like, I'm sure, I can't even imagine going all the way on the AT, like 2,000 miles, and then you have to pull off with 99 to go, and then you have to come back. How do you feel about, like, after being able to process all the emotions, like, how do you feel about your experience? Do you wish, like, you could have, like, gotten it all in one go? Do you think it doesn't matter because you got it done still within, like, I mean, a really quick time frame? I don't know. What are your, like, thoughts on how it all played out?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it would have been awesome to finish that summer, like, even in 71 days, but I'm pretty happy with how it worked out. Getting to go back there in October was something I would not have done if it didn't go down the way it did. So I don't know. I don't really have any regrets about how it played out. I'm happy I did it.
Yeah, that's good. I'm thinking right now, like, when am I going to get back to the CT to finish up that last week after that ankle injury derailed it? Really frustrating, but yeah, I don't know. It's definitely a shorter trail. I can't say I know how it feels, but it's like it's definitely tough because you want to do it all in one go.
Right.
But yeah, how one thing I've learned from you, you've been a great friend especially I've met you a little over a year ago, volunteering at a race called the Silver Heels 100-mile endurance run here in Colorado, in Fairplay. And after our volunteer shift ended, we ended up we ran up Mount Silver Heels, which is, I forgot what the feet on it is. It's over 13,000.
It's a centennial 13er. So in Colorado's 100 highest peaks, but it's an easy mountain. It's not like technical at all. It's just a hill. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I remember we went out and did that, and we were talking about our ultra running experience with each other. And it was interesting because, like, most people I talk to are, like, not as intense as me. I feel like even in the ultra running world, I feel like we're on, like, the more intense side of the scale. But one thing you've really helped me with is getting into thru-hiking in the last year. I definitely wouldn't have done that without you. I think I would have done it, but it would have been, it would have taken me an extra year or two or more without a teacher like you to, like, get me on pace for that. But because you were able to, like, help me get to, like, my first thru hike, which ended up being the Tahoe Rim Trail, and then I ended up on the Colorado Trail this summer. And though I didn't finish, I did 175 miles on the TRT with you, and then 300 miles on the Colorado Trail.
That's a lot of miles.
And yeah, both of those hikes were about a month out from 100-mile races I did, and I ran my two best 100-mile races ever, and I'm at 7 right now. So I guess the sample size is still small, but I feel really confident in the fact that through hiking can help your ultra running. Like if you're trying to race or if you're just trying to like feel better late in a race out there, I feel like through hiking is a really great tool for that after this summer. Like, what are your thoughts on through hiking equating to running, like both on a physical and a mental level? Like, what have you learned from through hiking mentally that's helped you become a better ultra runner? And do you think that ultra runners should plan to hike during their training to prepare for ultras?
So that last question, yes, because I mean most people are going to be doing a lot of hiking anyway. So, so definitely practice your hiking if you're training for say 100-miler or even a 50-miler. And then how does like through hiking translate to ultra running? I guess was the main question there. I mean obviously pretty well. Is a ton of time on feet. You're on trails. You're carrying a heavier pack than you will be for ultra running, but ultra running you still most cases are going to be carrying a pack. So having that heavier pack with through hiking will definitely help prepare your body for the rigors of a ultra marathon run. I know from my experience, the first time I did the Colorado Trail, I did the Colorado Trail, and then about a month after I finished the Colorado Trail, I ran the Leadville 100 as my first 100-miler. And I think, yeah, obviously the time on feet helped me out a lot for that. Also, all the time at altitude, I think definitely helped me out a lot at the Leadville 100 that year. And then, yeah, so maybe those are more some of the physiological aspects.
You did.
And then,
whoa, you finished Leadville in, what was the time again?
like 24 and a half hours.
Yeah, so you finished a really, like, I mean, I know it's like a faster 100 for a lot of people. Look at it as like, yeah, a lot of people look at it as like a mountain 100, but
yes, kind of.
Yeah, it's because like those sections up and down Hope Pass are really tough, but most of the race outside of that is pretty runnable, right?
Exactly.
But it seems like all that hiking equated to like a really fast running time still for you.
Yeah, I think just the altitude and acclimatization that I had and the time on feet helped me out a lot for that run. But yeah, the mental side of it, yeah, it'll help you, but I just think through hiking is a different mentality than ultra running. Because ultra running is just, even if it's 100-miler, you're only going to be out there for maybe 30 hours, maybe more than that if you're doing a really hard race. Through hiking, in a lot of cases, you're going to be out there for months at a time. And with through hiking especially, like, you know, you could be out there for 2 months and still have another like month to go, or like 400 miles to go. And if things get really, really shitty on a through hike, like, you know, you don't, it's just, it could be harder to be like, oh, this is only a weekend of my life or a day of my life. This is my life right now. And, you know, when the bad times come, it's like, well, and I guess this does equate to ultra running. Like the good times are going to come back, and the bad times the good times wouldn't be as good if it wasn't for those bad moments.
Yeah.
Which you definitely get that dynamic in ultra running too. But I think through hiking is just a longer time scale.
Yeah. And did you did your so I'm going to change it up just a little bit. You did the Peaks route. Was that the one before Leadville you said, or was that the one after?
So the Colorado Trail, just it's, you know, typical Sobo Colorado Trail hike, that was 2018.
Okay.
And then the Peaks route I did in 2020.
2020. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was wondering, like, what inspired you to take like a 500-mile trail and be like, I'm going to kind of follow this, but like modify it to fit what I want? Because you designed it all on your own. Right. Mm-hmm. Nobody's done this route except for you.
At least not that I know of. Yeah.
Step for step. I highly doubt anybody's done this.
Yeah, so this is 2020. So I was supposed to run High Lonesome that year, but it got canceled a few months before it was supposed to happen. And so I planned on finishing the Arizona Trail the first part of that summer, which I did. And then I kind of found myself with, the whole summer and not really having any plans. And I was like, well, there's not really anything else to do. So I'm going to go hike.
Let me just go hike the CT again.
Yeah. And, so the last few years, living in Colorado, I got into climbing the 14ers and the 13ers. And I bought those Jerry Roach guidebooks, which are incredibly detailed. And there's really some interesting routes on there. And kind of flipping through those books, I was like, oh, well, you can go up, the west side of this mountain and go down the east side of this mountain. And I started just kind of piecing together. It's like, oh, I can do this peak in the San Juans, and I can link it up, and I can go over Handies, and I can go over Sunshine and Red Cloud, and then I can link it up with these other 13ers and go right down into Lake City, for example, rather than following the Colorado Trail proper, all the way, because I've done that before, and I was like, the Colorado Trail, I think it can go over more of the peaks, and I can kind of do more peak bagging while doing a through hike. So I just really pieced together different trails and routes to include as many peaks as I could. The plan was to start in Durango and go all the way to Long's Peak. And in that route, you summit, I think it's 25 of Colorado's 100 highest peaks.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man. Mm-hmm. How'd you get to Durango first?
So I just drove. Yeah, actually.
You just left your car there.
Yeah, so in 2018, I stayed with the Trail Angel and I finished the trail. And I left, they picked me up and at the end of the trail, and so I still had their contact information. I actually drove from Tahoe to Durango because I had just finished my first hike of the Tahoe Rim Trail.
Yeah. And
then I drove to Durango, and I was like, hey, can I leave my car here for a month? I'll just park on the street. And she's like, yeah, sure, no problem.
Incredible.
So yeah, she gave me a ride to the trailhead there, and it was late June, and I started hiking north on the CT.
And so did you design this as you were going, or did you?
No, I planned it all out ahead of time. Yeah.
And was this all in Cal Topo or something?
Yeah, Cal Topo. I actually kind of threw it together rather hastily. I didn't really plan on doing it until after I finished the Arizona Trail, which was June maybe 10th, and then I had a few days before I started the Tahoe Rim Trail, and it was really in that few days where I just kind of threw this all together.
What an animal. So you go from the AZT to the TRT to the CT, and you're like, nah, I'm not going to do this again. I'm going to edit it, make it harder and more fun.
Yeah, well, so when I finished the Arizona Trail, I stayed in Airbnb in Flagstaff, and I started working on the route really there.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You realize that's crazy.
I guess so.
No, I think it's really cool, though. Is this Peaks route, do you have it published on any app or anything where other people could follow it if they wanted to?
Well, I have some YouTube videos about my experience on the Peaks route, and I think I put in the comments, if anyone wants a GPX track of the route, they can DM me, but no one ever has. So if you want a GPX track or more information about it, just reach out to me. I'm happy to share it for free.
Yeah, so one thing that's really cool is on top of that, first, what's your YouTube channel called?
It's just my name, Dave Braunlich.
Dave Braunlich, cool. So for anyone who's interested in getting into through hiking, Dave has some really good videos out on his YouTube channel.
They're just okay. Yeah.
Well, I think the ones in particular that are good are, you have some really cool guides on how to dehydrate meals, for example. If you were, especially what you were doing on the AT, you went out there and, most of all the dehydrated meals you made were vegan at least.
Yeah.
So you can eat healthy out on the trail, or you can stick to certain diet restrictions by dehydrating meals before you go hike. And also you have another really good video in particular which was the one I watched it so many times, man, preparing for the Colorado Trail, which was
the gear video.
Yeah, the gear video, man. The gear video you have on your YouTube channel is super helpful.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
And on top of that, what's helpful is in that Colorado Trail gear video that you have the Lighter Pack website. So Lighter Pack's this website where you basically weigh out all your gear and you list it all out. And so if you go to Dave's Colorado Trail video, you can actually see all the gear he used. And if you're looking for a good frame of reference as to what you should get, that's a really good tool, I think. What's your biggest piece of advice for new thru-hikers?
Probably buy the expensive gear the first time.
Yeah, you told me that, and I thought about it, and I was like, I'm going to buy the cheap stuff, I'm going to fuck up, so I just followed your advice and did that.
Yeah, I mean, I think so many people make that mistake where you try to cheap out on your gear, and then you end up buying. It's like, oh, there's a reason people buy the quality gear, so you can save yourself time, weight, heartache by just going right to the nice stuff.
Yeah.
And also hike with at least one trekking pole. Oftentimes I will see people out there on like Pawnee Buchanan or Four Pass, like those kind of classic ones that get a lot of noob hikers on them, and you'll see people with these giant packs and no trekking poles, and they're like half hunched over and they got their hands like under their straps because they're like all their blood is flowing down to their hands and just they look so miserable.
You have some great quotes, and one of your best quotes is I don't know if you stole it from somewhere else, but like
I probably heard that.
Your pack is like inverse to the distance you're
there's
doing.
an inverse relationship between the size of your pack and the length of the trail.
There's that. My other favorite one that I've like misquoted you 100 times on is like they say life is a marathon, not a sprint, but my sprint or no, what is it?
Yeah, marathons are sprints.
Yeah, marathons are sprints because my marathon is 100-miler, something like that.
Not exactly that. I mean, I guess that like metaphorical sense of where people
say,
oh, it's a marathon and a sprint. It's like, well, for me, like a marathon, like if I'm just trying to PR a marathon, like that's a pretty intense like redlining effort.
Right.
Whereas 100-miler is not.
Would you? So I actually think training for a marathon's harder than an ultra.
Yeah, I would agree with that. As if you're trying to reach your potential, yeah.
Yeah, like a fast marathon. I mean, compared to just finishing an ultra. Definitely a marathon I think is harder because you need to be more structured and speed oriented.
Exactly.
But on the topic of ultras, do you have any favorite races?
Yeah, probably. If I had to pick one, probably High Lonesome.
High Lonesome.
Yeah, is the best course I've done. Because of it's super high up. There's so many, like the first 100K, I think there's like 5, like 12,000 foot plus passes that you go over. A lot of it is on the Colorado Trail / the Continental Divide Trail. This is really wild, rugged, high up. And it's doing it, a lot of those trails in a 100-mile race. A lot of it was on the same, trails that I've been on doing my hikes of the Colorado Trail. So kind of getting it to experience it in a different, I guess, setting was really cool.
Yeah. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Do you have any other like favorite races that you enjoy?
I probably have to mention Quad Rock because I've done it 5 years in a row.
I thought you were gonna say that was your favorite because
it'd be hard to put that as my like absolute favorite. But yeah, it's got to be up there for sure. Yeah, it's close by. Has plenty of climbing, which I love, and it's right before the summer too, which is another cool thing about it. Yeah,
I want to put you on the spot.
Uh-oh.
What's your favorite race story?
Race story?
Yeah. Do you have anything like crazy that's happened to you? You've done what, 21 or 22 ultras now?
Yeah, I guess I have.
I just want to make this clear. Dave is undefeated. Never DNF'd. He is, it's 22?
I should have looked this up before.
No, you're good. He's over 20 ultras.
I
and
think it's 20. I think it is 22.
22.
It's 21 or 22.
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll say 22 and 0.
Yeah.
No DNFs.
Nope. Yeah, do I have any crazy stories? I don't like I don't know. There's nothing nothing been like where I've almost died or where I've gotten like attacked by an animal or anything that's happened that's that crazy besides like the normal stuff of falling asleep on
Is there
the
a funny
trail.
story? Oh, Joel wants to know. I asked Joel Gartenberg, who was on episode 3 of the Journey Running podcast, had a few questions for Dave, for me to ask Dave during this podcast, and he was wondering if you had any quote unquote silly moments during an ultra, or if you had cried ever during just running in general.
Okay, I'll take that second one first. So sometimes I think I've felt like such a profound runner's high before that it can make you a bit emotional, where I wouldn't say you're fully crying, but you can feel, sort of those feelings of tears coming on.
Yeah.
Which is crazy, like state to be in, I think. Yeah, that's happened to me more than once, and it usually happens like midway through a long race. This is like, wow, I've gone this far, and it's like it's amazing that I still feel this good, and I can run this well, and just like where I am, and just kind of a confluence of things come together to produce that running high.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, in that sense, yeah, but never, have I been like sitting at an aid station crying because I've been so miserable.
No, I kind of know what you mean. Like I've never cried, and like I've been in like enough physical pain to cry. I had a tough time at the Bear 100. Like I was on crutches for a few days after that race, so that was tough. But like during a race, like I think I know what you mean, because I can actually make myself cry pretty easily during races. It's because, especially after you overcome something really difficult, like late in a race, you could be like, I'm just really proud of myself for overcoming that. And you can get really emotional really easily. And it doesn't always happen, but for me, I've had there's certain memories that I have where I'm like, in the middle of a race, and I'm like, wow, I just overcame this really profound experience. I'm like really proud that I'm like back on the trail, and I'm feeling good, and I'm continuing, and like there's just pride that comes with like overcoming adversity, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And then any silly like what does that mean? What does that mean? What is a silly moment?
A silly moment? I don't know. He asked for a silly moment. He said he had a lot of coffee.
I haven't worn Crocs while running a race. I don't know.
Yes. Once again, watch episode 3 with Joel Gartenberg. He ran actually 2 100-mile races and 100-mile races and racing Crocs, and then did the yeah. Anyways, watch that episode.
Something really crazy is when I hiked the Appalachian Trail, I carried Crocs, which is
you
something
carried Crocs.
I'd never do that again.
Dude, you never. You're the man who sheds like.
I know. Well,
this man weighs everything he owns.
Been that way though.
When I was going to Tahoe with Dave this year, for reference, Dave told me to make sure that I had the tags cut off of all of my gear, because that would weigh me down.
Common practice to cut off the tags.
To be fair, the common thru-hiking quote is like grams turn into ounces, ounces turn into pounds, pounds turn into pain. So that's fair, but like, I don't know, you had Crocs with you and I had tags.
Yeah.
Also, Joel he had one more really good question I really liked. He had a few questions, but this one in particular I liked. Yeah. How do you think the frequency of racing ultras impacts performance? I thought that was a really interesting question.
I guess there's pros and cons. It would probably be better if you're trying to maximize your potential and in a certain event to be specific and focus like really hard in that one event. And that's how I think had some success with road marathons. But ultras, I don't know, like, yeah, it might be better to just really taper and focus on that one event. But I think part of the culture with running ultras is just be able to jump in a race and have fun and not so much worry about your pace or am I reaching my potential exactly. So running a whole bunch of races might not be the best thing for your time in any one races, but at the same side you're gaining more experience, because that is a big part of running ultras, is knowing what to do out there, how to pace yourself, what gear to carry. So if you do more, you have more practice with that. But yeah, you could also overdo it too. So yeah, I don't know. It's just pros and cons, I'd say.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you're probably looking at my document I have up here with my questions.
I was just looking at that first question there.
Oh, yeah.
The next one looks like a big block of text there. So
this one over here.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, I was wondering. So, Dave and I, we're good friends. We've done a lot of runs together, especially like last year. I was training for Moab 240, and this guy runs High Lonesome, and I think the first. But you did High Lonesome, and the first run that we did together, so we met at Silver Heels Volunteering.
Yep.
And then you ran High Lonesome, and I was like, that seemed like a cool dude. I'd love to go running with him a little more. But he just ran a 100-miler, and then I was like, I'm gonna go do this Pawnee Buchanan loop. I was like, I don't think I'm going to text him because he just ran 100 like 2 weeks ago.
Right.
And you text me, you're like, what are you up to this weekend? I was like, I have a reservation at Pawnee Buchanan up at Indian Peaks. And you were like, yeah, let's do it. I thought that was really funny.
Yeah.
Because I had like never met somebody who was like ready to go do like a 30-miler 2 weeks after running a 100-miler.
It's 2 weeks, not 2 days.
I guess. Wait, no, the first run we did was actually...
I don't remember. It's like I remember running Pawnee Buchanan with you, but I don't remember when we did it in relation to High Lonesome. I guess it had to be probably, was it 2 weeks after? I don't know.
I'm actually messing up the timeline, because when did we do... We did Crestone, where we attempted Crestone.
That was... Wasn't that before?
Yeah, I think that was before.
Yeah, that was before High Lonesome.
Oh, so that was our, like...
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Anyways, I'm messing up our timeline here.
We definitely did Pawnee Buchanan after, though.
Yeah.
I just don't remember how much after.
I think what I was trying to get to with that question was like, we have like a little bit of a difference on like training. Like you kind of do whatever you want these days, whenever you want these days. Mm-hmm. And I'm very much like after a long run or like after like a 100-miler, it's hard to get me to really get after it super quickly, not out of lack of motivation or want. It's more so physical, I would say, and mental. It's like I just need a little bit of more of a rest period, but you seem to get after it really quickly. Like, what is your philosophy with rest?
That I don't like it.
I mean, like...
no, it's in all seriousness, so...
I was going to say, in all seriousness, like, you're a guy who takes care of yourself. Like, you focus on your diet, obviously. You run a lot, but
I honestly though I do have trouble with resting or like not doing any like physical activity. If there's anything I'm addicted to, it's like definitely exercise and physical activity and doing at least something every day. Because if I feel like it's like okay, you were out there with me for Sangre a couple of weeks ago, and we finished Sunday morning. It was pretty miserable end of the race for me, but I think I took Monday off from anything, and then like Tuesday I was riding my bike again and I was fine. I like went to work on Monday and was fine, I guess. I tried to get you to run with me last weekend, and then I went and did my own thing, but I was definitely feeling it a bit running. I was like, I'm still definitely feeling that 100-miler from last weekend in my legs, but I don't know. It's also like
you did half of what you wanted
Colorado.
to do with me.
Yeah, but I would have been really hurting if we did that 23-mile loop up by Kenosha Pass if we went up there.
Yeah.
But I also feel like it's peak foliage time in Colorado right now, and not doing something to go and see it because you're following some like arbitrary philosophy or plan is just kind of dumb.
I don't know. I ran a 100-miler, so I ran Mogi on Monster on September 10th, and a week later I did that 15-miler with you, and it was a mistake for sure. I was in a lot of pain
You were
during that
so
run.
upset that it was 15 miles and not 10.
Yeah, I thought this run we were going to do was like 10 miles and it was 15. I was in a lot of pain for real though.
Yeah.
But I was happy I could pace you for 30 miles the next weekend at Sangre. That was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of walking.
And you did end up winning the race. You still won.
Whoop-de-doo. Yeah.
What was your, was it 27 or 28?
27, 30
27.
something.
Okay.
Yeah. It was a rough night.
Yeah. But I mean, I know what it's like because a lot of races finish in, like there's a lot of really cool races to do in like the September timeframe.
Yep.
Or October timeframe. And then like the week before or the week after, you want to take advantage of like fall leaves in Colorado, which only lasts for like 2 weeks. And it's like,
yeah, it's a short
can you really do it?
Mm-hmm.
You can't really take advantage of it if you have a race on the calendar in that time frame. It's hard to, at least.
Yeah. Well, I got a race tomorrow and a race next weekend, so.
Yeah. Wait, your race tomorrow is you're pacing a marathon, right?
Yeah. So pacing is very different than ultramarathon pacing. I'm running a sign that says I'm running a 3:30 marathon, and I actually have to run, 3:30, or I'll fail.
Yeah. Well, so we're recording this on Saturday, October 8th. This is probably going to come out in the next, I would say 10 to 14 days.
Okay.
I'm trying to get all the episodes out on like Thursdays just to be consistent. Every other Thursday is my goal, with grad school and stuff due and trying to make ends meet. It's not always working out that way, but trying to. I don't know. What's next for you, Dave?
Well, tomorrow the Boulder-thon
obviously
is next,
like there's that, but I mean like what's your you're doing that, and that's kind of like a service, you're giving back to the community by doing that. Like what are your big goals in the future? Like what are you aspiring to achieve, because you've achieved some like really huge accomplishments in your short time. As I mean, you didn't start running like that long ago relatively. Like you're 32 years old now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you started running, was it how many years of running now?
2013, so yeah, 9.
9 years of running.
But really, like seriously doing races, 6. Yeah.
6.
Mm-hmm.
So you've done a lot though within, we'll call it 9 years. Like I consider my career 15 years, and I started in middle school. It's not to say the middle school stuff like didn't matter. Like obviously the ultra running career versus the whole total running career is different, but what's next for you? What are you looking forward to? What's keeping you driven here?
Well, immediately next, we talk about Boulder-thon. I'll be running the Indian Creek 50-miler next weekend. So that'll only be 3 weeks after the 100-miler, so we'll see how that goes. Doing Dead Horse 50-miler in November, then Black Canyon 100K, and then that's in February. And then after that, there's nothing on the calendar. I'll do Quad Rock again when registration opens. But I'm not really sure what 100-milers I'm doing next year. Possibly Moab 240. We'll see. Possibly about that.
That's funny.
Yeah. What keeps me motivated was one of your questions. Yeah, that's a good question. Just the desire to get out there and be active every day is honestly a big part of what keeps me going. Being in a place like Boulder makes that pretty easy, to be honest, with how good the running is there, but it's also why I choose to live there. Yeah. So, and then like what do I want to accomplish? Was that one of your questions?
Go for it.
Yeah, just I don't know, do more races, have fun. There's some other through hikes that I want to do in the somewhat near future, which I'll leave as vague as that. Yeah. No, there's like just a few more questions I want to ask you here. Yeah, no. I got so first of all, you said maybe Moab 240. But we volunteered at Tahoe last year, so we should be that means that we should have some direct entries into 2023 next year. Mm-hmm. Can bypass the lottery and all that.
So that means we'll get to run Moab together. I don't know about you. I'm really pumped for that.
As long as, I'm going to do it as long as, it's still paid for with the volunteer service that we did.
Mhm.
And once I see it on my ultra sign up, then I'll say I'm definitely doing it. But until then, it's possibly.
It's really hard to like look at something and be like, when it's not on your sign up page or your results, it's like, did that happen or would not?
Yeah, so
I know what
maybe,
you mean.
Maybe by the time this comes out, it'll be on the ultra sign up, staring me in the face. Yeah.
There might be a few month difference, but so outside of Moab 240 next year, there's like one or two more questions I did want to ask you though.
Yeah.
So one of those questions was, so last year you had an interesting experience. You're actually going to help me. I can't say I don't feel a little bad about this, even though it sounds like you,
fault, yeah.
I know you dislocated your shoulder a few times, in the past. And then last year on the way to a crew meeting for when I ran Moab 240 last year, you fell off your bike in the park, on the way to our crew meeting and dislocated your shoulder. And that ended up being how many times had you what number time was that?
6 or 7.
6 or 7.
At least.
And that ended up being the time that caused you to have shoulder surgery though.
Right.
I can't imagine like being as into fitness and the outdoors as you are. I feel like that's really going to show through on this like episode, like how passionate you are about like sport and being active in general. Like that was probably the first time in your real like running career where you had to take a step back that was mandatory. And what was that like for you?
It was hard for sure. Yeah, I like put off, I started having shoulder dislocations and I started doing research on, like why does this keep happening? And really saw that the only cure was surgery, which then meant 4 to 6 weeks in a sling, followed by a lengthy thing of PT. And I was like, well, I can just pop it back into place and be fine. So I like put it off, and then it got worse and worse. And like you said, I crashed my bike that time riding over to Stefan's apartment, and it got really bad after that. It was like slipping out, just like reaching my arm out, and I was like, okay, well, I can't keep living like this anymore. So I, bit the bullet and got the surgery. And if you're having issues with your shoulder, don't wait, get the surgery, because you're only going to make it worse. And I remember the surgeon said that my shoulder is one of the worst ones he's ever seen. And so I had to have a lot of work done on it. I was in a sling for 6 weeks, which was really difficult. Not being able to run or ride my bike was hard, but I was able to walk. So maybe in the long run, it was good to have a bit of time off from running, but I did get out there and walk like for an hour pretty much every day while I was going through that. And the PT was pretty intense. I only went into the office like I think once every 2 weeks, but the exercises were like 3 times a day and really had to prioritize like doing them. And when your shoulder is in a sling for 6 weeks, like all the muscles really atrophy and you lose so much strength, and getting that strength back. And it's been almost a year now, and I'm still working to get the strength and range of motion back. Just even riding my bike over here today, it was like getting kind of stiff and being painful, but it's way better now, and it hasn't dislocated again. So I'm glad that is mostly behind me now.
Yeah. And I mean, it's been a pretty good story, pretty cool story, I think. Like
sort of.
Sorry, I just mean like the recovery process.
Yeah.
At first it was really like grim, and I'm sure your mental health took a bit of a toll there when you were forced to be in the sling for a while, but just being your friend and like seeing you on Strava, this man became a master walker if he was not already a master hiker.
The toilet bowl loop in Boulder.
But like every day on Strava, it was like Dave just went for another power walk. And then this last year you ran 2 more 100-mile races. You ran, I'm trying to remember the name of the 100K you did.
World's End 100K.
Yeah, World's End in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
That sounded like a really cool race too.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I got to see you. We were both back in Jersey because we both grew up in New Jersey at the same time, just like by straight up luck. I think it was. You were running a race. I was there for my mom's birthday, and we got to do that.
Devil's Path.
Yeah, the Devil's Path. That was really fun. Really interesting. Like, you forget when you move out west, like, Colorado's awesome, and I love these mountains, but you forget how green it is out east sometimes because out here it's so much drier.
And humid,
yeah. And humid. Oh, my gosh. I was, like, sweating balls by mile 2 out there. But that was really cool to do with you. I got 2 more like quick things for you, but is there like, you know what, before I ask you the last question, I just want to give you a quick acknowledgement. You're a really good friend of mine. I know we've only known each other for like a little over a year now.
Yeah.
But I just want to give you an acknowledgement for how stubborn you are. I have a lot of respect for it. People say stubbornness is bad, but I disagree, which is a sign of stubbornness.
Depends on the context, I guess.
Yeah, it depends on the context, I guess. But I mean, you're 22-0 in ultras, which I think says a lot about your passion and your determination to like.
Any hard ones yet.
I think it says a lot about your passion and your determination for what you've done and where you're going to continue doing. And I think that you've been a really good friend and that you've taught me a lot and you've made me a much better ultra runner. And I think that anyone who looks up your profile after this and is like, they're going to learn stuff from like your YouTube channel, for example. And I think that, I'm really lucky to have met you at that race volunteering at Silver Heels 100 last year volunteering. Is there a place in particular where people can follow you and your adventures going forward from this podcast?
Yeah, so you mentioned YouTube. For day-to-day stuff, definitely Strava. Just my name, David Braunlich. I'm on Instagram, which is also my name. Very creative. I think it's also the name part, not the handle, is like 70 on a trail, so you could search for that. But yeah, Strava, Instagram, and then sometimes I post stuff on YouTube also. Yeah,
70 on a trail for doing the AT in 70 days.
Yeah, well, almost 70 days. It was supposed to be 70 days.
I don't know if you want to be called 69. That might mean something else to some people.
Yeah, there's no way, especially teaching 8th graders, that I was going to be 69.
So true. But I also did want to mention, you can also find Dave. He's done some other podcasts, and before this one, he's been on the probably most famously the Training for Ultra podcast, and you can find that episode listed as the title of it is episode David Braunlich - Appalachian Trail in 70 days.
And that was before we recorded that one.
Okay.
I hiked the trail, and then the next one you're going to mention was after, so you can kind of see it before and after.
Oh, the one I have mentioned here. Okay, yeah, and so the one after he hiked the AT was Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail podcast, and the title for that episode is episode 197 - Dave Braunlich, and then in parentheses it says 70 on the episode title.
Yeah, and both of those are really good podcasts, just more generally. One, Training for Ultra, obviously about ultra running, and then Mighty Blue does a really good job kind of covering the Appalachian Trail, and I thought he did a really good job with my interview on that podcast.
Yeah, no, I listened to both of them. They were both a lot of fun. It's especially fun knowing you now because I've read the Training for Ultra book, and in the book you're mentioned, but there's a blurb about this guy named Dave who's really talented at ultra running, and you paste Rob Steger at Moab 240, which was cool in the book. Yeah, definitely recommend checking out Rob Steger's stuff. I love his documentary on running the Triple Crown of 200s, and his book Training for Ultra is really good too. But Dave, before we head out of here, do you have anything else that you would like to end on today?
I don't know. I think we covered it. Yeah.
Cool. Well, really appreciate you having you on. I am sure that this will not be the last time that we end up doing this together.
You're not going to ask me about like toe socks or anything like that.
Do you want to talk about toe socks?
No toe socks is all I have to say.
What?
Yeah.
You wear I'm an Exoskin ambassador, and I know you wear Exoskin too. So
Yeah, but not their toe socks.
yeah, it's all right. Well, thank you guys all for listening to episode 5 of the Journey for Running podcast. Really appreciate everybody who has been tuning in. Please remember, if you'd like to check us out on other platforms, right now we have the podcast up on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Shortly, that's going to be available on other platforms. Additionally, you can find the podcast available on YouTube, and you can also follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and then, just the YouTube channel in general for other related running videos. But thank you all for listening. Please reach out to me, Stefan Schuster. You can also reach me at the website journeyruncoaching.com or journeyrunningllc@gmail.com is where you can reach me directly. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, feel free to like, rate, or comment on the podcast and would really appreciate it. Thank you guys.
And only leave a review if it's 5 stars.
Thanks, Dave.